Chapter 1408. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. If Kingsaman was destroyed, Tian Chanzi would definitely be extremely sad. Judging from Tian Chanzi's daily words and deeds, he had deep feelings for his sect. Naturally, he could not sit back and do nothing. Otherwise, it would become a big regret in his heart. Xiaobai saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and asked, "You want to help them?" "Yes, this is Tian Chanzi's sect. I can't just stand by and watch them die. Do you have a way?" Tang Zheng asked expectantly. "It's not that there's no way at all, but we're divine senses. We can't really attack the enemy," Xiaobai said awkwardly. "If we can't really attack, then how can we help them?" Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. Xiaobai laughed. "Master, we can scare those traitors away." "Scare them away?" Tang Zheng thought for a moment and immediately understood Xiaobai's intention. This was purely to scare people. But would those people be scared away? "Master, after all, I'm a former royal of this world. This is my world, so I can cleverly use some of the laws of the outland such as this." As soon as he finished speaking, the sky became gloomy. It was daytime, but suddenly it became dark, as if night had fallen. The two sides who were fighting found themselves in a dark world. They subconsciously stopped fighting and looked up at the sky. The sky was dark, and there was not even a trace of light. Whoosh! The light soared into the sky, and everyone immediately activated their magic weapons. The colorful light illuminated the world, and they could see each other clearly. But both sides very tacitly stopped fighting and looked at each other. They did not understand what was going on, and they suspected that it was the other side's trick. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, he was overjoyed. This was all thanks to Little White, but if he wanted to scare the enemy away, he was still lacking a little. "Master, now it's up to you. You have to scare them away by talking," Xiaobai reminded. "Talk? We're divine senses, can we talk?" Tang Zheng was surprised. "Don't you still have me?" "I used my divine ability so you can naturally speak," Xiaobai said mysteriously. Tang Zheng no longer hesitated. After mulling it over for a moment, his voice resonated like a great bell. "Traitors, you'd better surrender and accept your punishment. How dare you stir up trouble again? How presumptuous!" This voice was even louder than thunder, clearly entering everyone's ears, shaking their minds. Both parties were startled. They looked around and looked up at the sky, but they couldn't find a single trace. They were shocked. Who was this? He came without a trace and created a huge commotion, yet no one could discover his whereabouts. The only explanation was that his strength was ridiculously high. Kingsaman was secretly delighted. They seemed to understand that this person was targeting the enemy, not them. This so-called traitor was definitely not them. The forces of Beyond Heaven were more shocked than the people of Kingsaman. This was because they understood what traitors meant. They were indeed traitors, but almost no one mentioned this matter anymore. It was a taboo. Now that the old score had been dug up, all of them felt ashamed. They felt guilty, but their anger also surged up with a whoosh. Everyone was afraid of being poked in their weak spots. This was their weak spot. "Who is it? Come out!" The people of Beyond Heaven shouted loudly, trying to find the culprit behind this. "I'm right in front of you. You're too weak to see me. Are you blaming me?" Tang Zheng said mysteriously. "Hiss!" The people of Beyond Heaven gasped and stepped back. They channeled their energy and focused, but still couldn't see anything. "This!" They looked at each other, and the fear in their hearts grew stronger. They had already tried their best, but they still couldn't see the culprit. "Who are you?" they asked hoarsely. "Humph! A bunch of traitors. How dare you ask about my identity?" Tang Zheng reprimanded. After hearing this, the people of Beyond Heaven were even more afraid and retreated to the edge of the square. Seeing this, Kingsaman was confused. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Looking at the expressions of the enemy, there must be more to this. Xiaobai saw the enemy's reaction and praised, "Master, your words are very effective." "They've been frightened." Tang Zheng laughed. "Then I'll work harder. Your free and unfettered days won't be long. The crimes you committed in the past are too numerous to be recorded. In the near future, you will pay the price for your crimes," Tang Zheng said, adding fuel to the fire. After hearing this, the people of Beyond Heaven were even more frightened.
Many of them already had a rumor in their hearts.
It was said that the royal family wasn't completely wiped out, but some escaped. The empress was pregnant and escaped. After so many years, could it be that the royal family had returned? Or could it be that the prince in the empress belly was born and came back for revenge? Anyone who had done something wrong would feel fear, and these traitors were no exception. When they thought of this, they already had thoughts of retreating. The royal family wasn't easy to deal with. If it really was the royal family, beyond heaven would be in chaos. It would be meaningless to continue fighting here.
Let's go!
With a loud shout, the crowd retreated and jumped down from the mountain peak floating in the air. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and a giant bird appeared out of thin air. It caught these people and flew away. Tang Zheng looked at the giant bird, and memories came flooding back. He remembered that when he was at the peak of Mount Buzhou, he saw a glimpse of beyond heaven. Among them, there was a giant bird like this. It covered the sky and was much bigger than an airplane.
In the glimpse, there were other beasts and a magnificent city that stretched as far as the eye could see.
This time, however, he didn't see it.
So that giant bird was a mount.
Tang Zheng suddenly realized.
That's the Kuan-pang.
Xiao Bai introduced. The Kuan-pang is huge. I don't know how many thousand miles it is. Tang Zheng immediately remembered a mythical beast recorded in an ancient book. Wasn't that the Kuan-pang? So the ancient book described the scenery of beyond heaven.
Did the author of the book also come from beyond heaven and spread it to the human world?
That's my mother's description. Someone wrote it down after hearing about it. Xiao Bai explained. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that Xiao Bai's mother, the former empress of the royal family, came to the human world. Then, she only said a few words about the giant bird, and that was why someone wrote it down. The Kuan-pang was huge, but it was not slow.
With a flap of its wings, it flew hundreds of meters away and disappeared in a few breaths.
The people of Kingsaman watched the enemy disappear into the distance. When they were completely out of sight, they cheered.
Oh!
The cheers were thunderous. May I ask which senior helped us? Everyone in Kingsaman will remember his kindness. The people of Kingsaman asked. Tang Zheng thought for a moment and said, a senior in Kingsaman is a close friend of mine. It was nothing. A senior in your sect? The people of Kingsaman murmured. Over the years, Kingsaman had been declining. Their lives were miserable. They wondered which senior was a close friend of such a master. Judging from the enemy's reaction, this master seemed to be closely related to beyond heaven. How could their senior be related to him? They could not figure it out no matter how hard they racked their brains. May I ask who the senior in our sect is? Everyone in the sect will also be grateful for senior's great kindness. Someone asked. Tang Zheng felt that he should let Tian Chanzi explain it to them later.
So, he pretended to be thoughtful and said, you will know in the future.
Since that was the case, the people of Kingsaman did not dare to ask further. Master, time is limited. I can't hold on any longer. If you have anything else to say it quickly. Xiao Bai urged. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Although Kingsaman is declining now, it will rise again in the future. You must maintain your strength. Remember this. The people of Kingsaman were struggling on the edge of despair. When they heard these words, they were filled with excitement and anticipation. Yes, we will follow your instructions. As soon as he finished speaking, the scene in front of him changed. He was surrounded by darkness. Then, a red crack appeared and he flew into it. Then, he returned to his own body. The two of them opened their eyes at the same time. Tang Zheng quickly asked, Xiao Bai, why are you back so soon? Xiao Bai said shamefully, Master, in the end, in order to scare away those traitors, I used up too much of my divine power. In the end, I couldn't do it, so I had to come back in time. Otherwise, I would have stayed in that world forever. Tang Zheng was stunned. He knew that the situation was very dangerous. It was also very risky for him to use his divine power to scare away the enemy. Xiao Bai, thank you.
Xiao Bai grinned.
Master, this is what I should do. In the future, we will definitely return to the heavens beyond. The people of Kingsaman will not be in danger under our protection.
Tang Zheng smiled and patted his head.
You are very thoughtful. When Xiao Bai recovers, I will take you to the heavens beyond. Then, we will be able to find out more about the heavens beyond, Xiaobai said. There is no hurry. We have other things to do. Tang Zheng did not mind.
Xiaobai asked excitedly, "What is it?"
We are going to Dianan to find out Ji Wuxiang's secret. Wow, this is fun. I always thought that Ji Wuxiang was not a good person. It is true. Xiaobai gritted his teeth and rubbed his hands. Master, don't worry. We will find out everything about him and punish him severely. Xiaobai, Ji Wuxiang is not the same as before. You must not act recklessly. Do you understand? Tang Zheng warned.
Xiaobai blinked and said wittily, "Master, don't worry.
I will listen to your orders." The sky was bright. The two of them left quietly. They walked under the morning light and headed towards Dianan. No one noticed their whereabouts. However, there was one thing that they did not expect. In the heavens beyond, Tang Zheng's words caused a huge uproar. The news spread all over the heavens beyond through various channels. Suddenly, the heavens beyond was in an uproar. Many people were ready to make a move. For a long time, the rumors about the royal family had never stopped. It was true, but many people were skeptical. However, it was different this time. The rumors were true. The royal family was not completely wiped out. Chapter 1409. At noon, Dianan was still sunny, while Yanjing in the north was already cool in autumn. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai stood on the somersault cloud and looked down at Dianan. There were many dangerous roads in Dianan, and the scenery was beautiful. Looking down from the sky, it was like a pearl on the land of Wuxia. However, now this pearl was full of danger, and no one dared to underestimate it. In order to provoke the conflict between Qi Yu and Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng naturally could not show his true face. Therefore, he patted Xiaobai's head, and a ball of light appeared on his face. In the next second, he changed into another appearance. Xiaobai, go to Sumeru world for a while. Xiaobai raised his head, looked at this strange master, and reluctantly returned to Sumeru world. Tang Zheng touched his cheek. This was a familiar face. Song Yu. Qi Yu occupied Song Yu's body, and Tang Zheng became Song Yu. Naturally, he was Qi Yu's current appearance. With this new appearance, Ji Wuxiang would treat him as Qi Yu. The somersault cloud landed silently in a secluded area, and he swaggered into the city. The Long family in Dianan had surrendered to Ji Wuxiang. Of course, he could only use the Long family as a breakthrough. He believed that Ji Wuxiang would definitely show up. He had been to the Long family more than once, and he was familiar with the way to the Long family's huge manor. Compared to before, this manor was bigger than before. Obviously, with the help of Ji Wuxiang, the Long family was dominant and powerful. They were the real local emperors of Dianan. The Long family manor was heavily guarded. When he was still more than 100 meters away, he was stopped by two people. This is not a place you should be. Go back. The guard treated him as a passerby who had taken the wrong way. Tang Zheng smiled slightly. Since he was here to make trouble, he naturally had to make a big fuss. He didn't seem to move at all as he continued to walk forward. The two guards were sent flying, as if they had been struck by gravity. The air seemed to have solidified, and everything became extremely slow. After Tang Zheng walked past them, they fell heavily to the ground and couldn't get up again. The commotion here immediately attracted the attention of others. Dozens of people rushed out of the manor, each of them burly and strong. They were obviously martial artists. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, they were still not enough to attract his attention. He took large strides forward. It seemed like a small step, but in reality, he took a big step forward. He covered a distance of 2 meters. In the blink of an eye, he was at the entrance of the manor. The people who had rushed up were all sent flying and slammed into the door. The door fell down with a loud bang and smashed into the ground, causing dust to fly up into the sky. He strolled through the door as if he was returning home, strolling leisurely. In the eyes of others, this place was like a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, but in his eyes, it was like a walk in a park. He didn't even make a move, and his invisible attack caused the invaders' attacks to disintegrate into nothingness. When he walked into the manor and saw more warriors, he was even more certain that after Long Xianyuan submitted to Ji Wuxiang, the Long family had become an important stronghold of the Azure Dragon Palace. Long Xianyuan had made the right move and strengthened the Long family. It was a pity that his son didn't have half of his vision and ability back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died so early. He sighed slightly and walked towards the main building. Although the manor was large, one could tell at a glance where the main building was. This was because the scale and grandeur of the manor were far from what other buildings could compare to. Many warriors rushed over from all directions. He suddenly sped up and passed through the crowd like a gust of wind. Everywhere he passed, everyone fell to the ground in disarray, looking battered and exhausted. Bang! With a muffled sound, a person flew out of the main building and landed heavily on the ground. The moment his feet landed on the ground, the earth seemed to tremble. Tang Zhang narrowed his eyes and looked at the other party curiously. Long Shenyuan. Long Shenyuan had the demeanor of an immortal. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his beard and hair were all white. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, he wasn't tall at all. He could clearly feel the change in Long Xuanyuan's strength. Ji Wuxiang was indeed powerful, causing Long Shenyuan to undergo such an earth-shattering change. He didn't know how he did it. One of the purposes of his trip was to find out how Ji Wuxiang did it. Although Long Shenyuan had already been transformed, he probably only knew how and not why, but he could still ask for some clues. Song Yu. Long Shenyuan blurted out, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately realized something, and changed his words. You are not Song Yu, you are Qi Yu. Obviously, Ji Wuxiang also knew that Qi Yu had taken over Song Yu's body. Tang Zheng's face was cold, and he said arrogantly, Long Shenyuan, you are not qualified to speak to me, called Ji Wuxiang out. How dare you call the High Lord by his name? Long Shenyuan was furious. Tang Zhang said disdainfully, Ji Wuxiang, an insignificant person, what's so important about his name? After pausing for a moment, he continued to mock, Long Shenyuan, you have become Ji Wuxiang's lackey, which means you are my enemy. If he doesn't appear, then the one who will be unlucky can only be you. Before he finished speaking, Tang Zhang made his move. He extended his hand and grabbed towards Long Shenyuan. In order to hide his divine ability, he deliberately did not use the heaven-swallowing technique, but used a common divine ability. His big hand grabbed like a dragon's claw, and a whirlwind appeared in his palm. With a push of his big hand, it flew towards Long Shenyuan. This whirlwind was like an angry dragon, as if it was roaring and whistling. Long Shenyuan realized that the situation was dire. He was on the verge of life and death. He did not dare to be careless. He stretched out his hand and took out a long spear. With a shake of the spear, the whistling sound of the spear did not stop. Like a fairy scattering flowers, the spear faced the whirlwind. Boom! With a loud sound, the spear dissipated, and the whirlwind trembled. It looked like it was about to dissipate, but miraculously gathered together. Long Shenyuan turned pale with fright. He hurriedly retreated, and finally soared into the air and flew up. The whirlwind struck the beautiful building, causing debris to fly everywhere and collapse with a loud bang. Tang Zhang looked at Long Shenyuan in astonishment. His strength was not low. One must know that although he did not use his famous consummate skill, he was still at the second stage of the Mahayana realm, and his attacks were also at the level of the Mahayana realm. However, Long Shenyuan had successfully avoided this calamity. From this, it could be determined that his cultivation should have already reached the Martial King realm, or even the Martial Emperor realm. In the past, he was at the Grand Master realm. Whether it was the Martial King realm or the Martial Emperor realm, it was a qualitative leap that was faster than a rocket. Long Shenyuan, not bad. You were actually able to dodge this attack. Ji Wuxiang has really given you old fellows a second chance. I wonder what your current cultivation is. Tang Zheng deliberately provoked him. Long Xuanyuan's face was flushed red, and he said hatefully, Ji Wuxiang's power is not something you can compare to. Qi Yu, you are an ancient person. Instead of lying in your grave, you actually came out to stir up trouble. You are courting death. Humph, as for my cultivation, there's no harm in telling you. I'm already at the late stage of the Martial King realm, and it won't be long before I break through to the Martial Emperor realm. Tang Zheng's heart trembled, and his expression changed slightly. He had not guessed wrongly. The leap in strength of a martial artist was indeed an eye-opener. In the past, martial artists had always been suppressed by cultivators. The speed at which the strength of cultivators soared far surpassed that of martial artists. That was why they became so powerful, causing martial artists to be unable to raise their heads. But now, it's different. The cultivation speed of martial artists is not the slightest bit slower than you martial artists. This is all thanks to the Lord. All the martial artists in the world will be grateful for his kindness. Tang Zheng seemed to be able to understand Long Xuanyuan's excitement. After all, this was the feeling of being able to hold one's head high. Tang Zheng was not moved, and said indifferently, I will kill Ji Wuxiang and let you all understand the true difference between cultivators and martial artists. That is just your beautiful extravagant hope. Reality is much crueler than you think. If you want to kill me, then come. I will not give in. No martial artist will give in to you cultivators. Long Xuanyuan puffed out his chest and said loudly. Tang Zheng did not waste any more words. With a grab of his hand, another tornado that was like an angry dragon appeared. The air from all directions gathered towards his palm. Whoosh! The tornado quickly flew towards Long Xuanyuan. Long Xuanyuan shook his spear. There were no fancy moves, no spear flowers. Only the cold light of the spear pierced towards the tornado. This move of returning to one's original state was an extremely difficult realm for martial artists to reach. However, Long Xuanyuan was no longer the same as before, and this move was extremely skillful. In the blink of an eye, the spear left his hand and pierced into the tornado. In an instant, the spear split into two into four, and actually turned into many, stirring up the tornado. Boom! The tornado disappeared, and the spear stopped in mid-air. The wind was calm, as if the spear had won. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into an unfathomable smile. With a flick of his finger, a strong wind blew against the spear. Ka-ka-ka! The spear cracked inch by inch and turned into fine powder. It drifted away with the wind and disappeared without a trace. Puff! Long Xuanyuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as a sheet. His breathing was chaotic as he coughed non-stop. Now you know who's stronger. Tang Zheng said indifferently. Long Xuanyuan said, so what if you're strong? If you're unpopular, the final victor will definitely belong to the Lord. Humph. Does Ji Wuxiang have the support of the people? In this world, whoever has the biggest fist is the truth. Tang Zheng raised his fist and said fiercely. However, Long Xuanyuan raised his head high. These words did not convince him. I don't need to convince you. Those who don't believe in these words will eventually be eliminated. It's only a matter of time. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he grabbed with his hand and sucked Long Xuanyuan into his hand. Long Xuanyuan didn't even have the chance to cry out before his neck was grabbed by Tang Zheng. He really wanted to use the soul-searching technique, so that the secrets in Long Xuanyuan's brain would be exposed. However, this might turn Long Xuanyuan into an idiot. After all, he was Nana's grandfather, and Tang Zheng didn't want to do such a thing. He rolled his eyes and had an idea. He smiled evilly and said, Tell Ji Wuxiang that I won't let him and the people around him off. I will kill them one by one and let them know how powerful I, Qi Yu, am. This world will belong to me, Qi Yu, alone. He loosened his grip and sent it forward again. With a bang, he slapped Long Xuanyuan's chest. True qi flowed through his 8 extraordinary meridians towards his dantian. Boom! Chapter 14:10. Long Xuanyuan was stunned, as if he didn't understand what was going on. But he immediately came to a realization. His dantian had collapsed. For a martial artist, this was equivalent to taking his life. Long Xuanyuan had been practicing martial arts since he was young, and had been practicing martial arts for most of his life. Martial arts was an indispensable part of his life. Martial arts gave him glory, dignity, and power. In fact, everything he had was closely related to martial arts. But now that his dantian had shattered, from today onwards, his martial arts would no longer exist. He was in despair. 2 huge tears flowed out of his eyes, and then, the tears formed a line and fell down like raindrops. Tang Zheng looked at this scene without the slightest bit of guilt. Long Xuanyuan was his enemy. If Long Xuanyuan had the chance to kill him, he would definitely not be lenient. If it weren't for Mu Hongyan and Nana, he wouldn't have been merciful. Therefore, he was already very merciful. Haha, Long Xuanyuan, isn't this feeling very bad? That's right, this is the result of going against me, Qi Yu. I want you to live a life worse than death. Tang Zheng deliberately laughed wildly. He was now Qi Yu,
so of course he couldn't comfort him. Instead, he had to do his best to attack him and humiliate him. Only in this way would he have the motivation to live on. Otherwise, he might not be able to survive this heavy blow. Long Xianyuan didn't know about Tang Zheng's good intentions. He only glared at him fiercely, his eyes bloodshot, and said while gnashing his teeth, "Qiyu, you're so ruthless."
Tang Zheng deliberately laughed. "Hate me? Then hate me, but unfortunately, you will never have the chance to take revenge. Obediently report to your master, Ji Wuxiang, and then you will have completed your destiny. At that time you can die." Die. This was like a heavy hammer that ruthlessly struck his heart. Just now, he felt like he was better off dead. But now, he suddenly felt lucky that he was not dead. Otherwise, wouldn't he have fulfilled Qi Yu's wish? "I can't die, I have to live on. Although I am no longer a warrior, I want to see the day when Qi Yu is defeated by the High Lord. I want to see his destruction." Long Xianyuan silently made up his mind. He didn't have the slightest thought of dying. Tang Zheng saw him gnashing his teeth and guessed what he was thinking. Instantly, he relaxed in his heart. He had done all he could, and if he still wanted to die, then he couldn't blame himself. There was no need to stay here any longer. He looked at Long Xianyuan coldly and laughed arrogantly. "Tell Ji Wuxiang it's useless for him to be a coward. I will catch him even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground. I will kill all of you warriors." After he finished speaking, he slowly rose into the air. He did not put these people in his eyes at all. He was extremely arrogant. He disappeared in mid-air, and the pressure suddenly disappeared. However, the boulder that was pressing on their hearts did not weaken at all. Long Xianyuan staggered out. Some of his subordinates came to help him, but he was pushed away. However, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. His hair was disheveled and he was in a sorry state. In this short period of time, he seemed to have aged 10 years, which made people sigh. Everyone's expression was complicated. Their eyes were focused on him, and their hearts were filled with Qi Yen. At the same time, they had the same thought in their hearts. They were not so carefree and aloof. Cultivators were more powerful than they thought. Once they made a move, it was possible for them to live a life worse than death. Long Xianyuan appeared in a secret place and confirmed that no one was following him. Grandma Li looked at him in surprise. She wanted to reach out to help him, but subconsciously stopped. She anxiously asked, "What happened to you?" Long Xuanyuan's mouth hung helplessly, and said weakly, "My dantian was destroyed." Grandma Li was shocked. Although she saw that there was no star power in his body and subconsciously stopped, she did not expect his dantian to be destroyed. As a martial artist, she knew very well what this meant. Her expression immediately became gloomy, and she asked sternly, "Who did it?" Long Xianyuan took a deep breath and said the name. "Qi Yu." "Qi Yu?" Grandma Li exclaimed. Her voice was sharp, and she was greatly shocked. Long Xianyuan looked at her expression and did not say a word. He let her accept this incredible news by herself. After a long while, Grandma Li woke up from her dream and asked, "Qi Yu came to Dianan?" "Yes." "Then where is he now?" Grandma Li asked. Long Xianyuan shook his head. "I don't know. His target is the Lord. He wants me to give up the Lord. How can I tell him? He destroyed me. I want to see the Lord kill him." His words were full of hatred. Grandma Li could understand him, nodded and said, "You did the right thing. The Lord will kill him to avenge you." Long Xianyuan nodded heavily, slightly hesitated and said, "Where is the Lord? I want to see him." Grandma Li hesitated for a moment and said, "The Lord went out to do something and has not returned yet." Long Xianyuan lowered his head in disappointment and said weakly, "If the Lord comes back, please let him see me." "Of course." "Then I'll take my leave first." Long Xianyuan bade farewell, turned around and walked out like an old man on his deathbed. In the past, he had a divine power and was full of spirit, more powerful than young people. Now that he had no power, he was like an old man, even slightly inferior. Watching Long Xianyuan walk away, Grandma Li's eyes gradually became cold. If Long Xianyuan saw this look, he would understand more. Granny Li came to a more secretive place and said respectfully, "My lord, I let Long Xianyuan go." In the darkness, Ji Wuxiang walked out, expressionless, and no one could see his heart.
He nodded slightly and said indifferently, I already know. Chiyu came to Dianan and directly challenged me. Grandma Li said angrily, Chiyu went too far, daring to come to Dianan. We can't let him go on like this. Ji Wuxiang didn't answer and muttered, Chiyu, why did you destroy Long Xuanyuan's dantian? Ha! Grandma Li was stunned. She didn't understand why the Lord was entangled with this question. She said naturally, This is more cruel than killing a martial artist, of course it is to torture him.
Ji Wuxiang didn't speak.
Grandma Li's heart trembled, realizing that things were far from as simple as she thought. Her expression became dignified, and she asked nervously, Lord, is there a problem? The Lord pondered for a long time. His calm expression didn't reveal his thoughts. The atmosphere was so quiet and oppressive that Grandma Li's breathing couldn't help but quicken. If it was someone else, they would have been scared to the ground. Only Grandma Li could hold on. Chapter 14:11. Granny Li suspiciously looked at the mysterious smile on Ji Wuxiang's face and asked curiously, My lord, is there really a problem? Ji Wuxiang looked at Granny Li with a smile that was not a smile and said, Don't you think that Chi Yu's behavior is very strange?
Strange?
Granny Li was at a loss.
When did Chi Yu become so benevolent?
Is he benevolent? Granny Li was in disbelief. He destroyed Long Xuanyuan's dantian, which is crueler than killing him.
Where is the benevolence?
Ji Wuxiang chuckled and said, Is this considered cruel? Let me tell you, the most miserable person is killing someone. As long as one's life is left, there is a chance to make a comeback. Chi Yu should understand this principle. If Chi Yu heard this, he would definitely give a thumbs up and praise Ji Wuxiang for understanding him. Killing a person is the most effective way to strike, but also the cruelest way, crueler than any other method. Granny Li thought for a while and had to admit that Ji Wuxiang's words were reasonable. Suddenly, a question arose in her heart. Since Chi Yu knows this principle, why didn't he kill Long Xuanyuan? Ji Wuxiang laughed and said meaningfully, This is where Chi Yu's cleverness lies. Killing Long Xuanyuan is indeed a counterattack, but that's just child's play. Only this way is more in line with his identity. He is confident that he is the strongest person in the world, so he used this method to tell me that he is not afraid of any revenge. Even if Long Xuanyuan can make a comeback, he will not put him in his eyes. After a pause, Ji Wuxiang took a deep breath and said, This is the method of a proud person. If you judge with common sense, there is no way to understand his deep meaning. Granny Li suddenly realized and said angrily, Not only is he counterattacking, he is also insulting us. He does not put us in his eyes at all.
Ji Wuxiang nodded in relief.
It's good that you understand this point. An arrogant army is bound to be defeated.
Chi Yu is bound to lose.
His death date is not far away.
Granny Li hatefully said.
Ji Wuxiang shook his head. Wrong. An arrogant army is bound to be defeated. That is for those without strength. If one is strong enough, no matter how arrogant they will definitely win.
Ha!
Granny Li was stunned. She seemed to be shocked by Ji Wuxiang's theory, but after thinking about it carefully, she found that it was indeed the case. A person who was extremely powerful, no matter how arrogant he was, would never be defeated by his enemies. This was because in front of absolute power, everything else was worthless. She hesitated for a moment before saying, But has Chi Yu really reached that level?
Ji Wuxiang smiled.
He thinks he's done it. How arrogant! This word was used very well, perfectly explaining Ji Wuxiang's point of view. Granny Li naturally understood and smiled as if relieved of a burden. Lord has heavenly chess. His power is boundless. Chi Yu thinks he is invincible, but he is really stupid. He will definitely be defeated by Lord. Ji Wuxiang declined to comment and said, Chi Yu came with great momentum, he will not let this matter go. He will definitely take action. Send someone down and find his whereabouts. I want to properly deal with him. Yes. Granny Li's eyes lit up. She clenched her teeth, looking forward to Lord's display of power. Ever since Ji Wuxiang had completely transformed and achieved great success, she had never seen him take action. The battle between him and Chi Yu was bound to be earth-shattering. This battle would also determine the situation of the world. When this battle ended, the victory and defeat of the world would be determined. If Tang Zheng knew about Ji Wuxiang's analysis, he would definitely be dumbfounded. He did not have such complicated thoughts. It was only because of Mu Hongyan and Nana that he let Long Shenyuan live. This was simply an unexpected surprise. It was like a sharp steel needle piercing into Ji Wuxiang's heart. Ji Wuxiang was also an absolutely proud person. He would not allow the existence of another proud person. This was a provocation to him. He would not tolerate it. After Tang Zheng flew into the sky, he saw Long Shenyuan sneakily leaving the manor. He chased him all the way, but he did not expect to be shaken off. After all, he was not a local snake and was not familiar with Dianan. Long Shenyuan had lived here all his life, like a fish in water. Even if he did not have martial arts, he was like a slippery loach. Tang Zheng was not discouraged. After searching for a long time, he finally found Long Shenyuan. Seeing that he was dejected, it was as if his spirit had been sucked away. Long Shenyuan walked in the direction of his home. Tang Zheng did not chase after him. Instead, he looked around and pondered, Ji Wuxiang's lair must be in this area. Long Shenyuan went there just now, but he hid it too well. Although he could be sure of this, it was not easy to find Ji Wuxiang in the vast sea of people. The ancients had a method called waiting for rabbits to appear. Although some people call it a stupid method, it is often more reliable. He believed that Long Shenyuan was not the only one in the Azure Dragon Palace, and he was definitely not the only one who came in and out of this place. Therefore, if he waited quietly here, he would be able to see other people coming in and out. Following the vine to find the melon, he would naturally be able to track Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang was definitely unfathomable, but he also wanted to test his depth and find out how he used the celestial chest to transform the power of the stars. He didn't have to wait too long before he saw a familiar face. It was Granny Li. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. Granny Li had a deep grudge with him. Back then, during the chaos of the martial sect, Wu Junshan had to leave the martial sect because of Granny Li. Tang Zheng was Wu Junshan's son, so naturally, he would not forget this matter. Granny Li did not discover Tang Zheng, who had used an illusion to hide his whereabouts. Instead, she quickly walked out. She was going to supervise her subordinates to search for Qi Yu's whereabouts. If it was something else, a phone call would be enough. But this matter was of great importance, so she had to personally supervise to prevent any accidents. As Granny Li walked, the corner of her eyes scanned the surroundings. She was very vigilant. Qi Yu was in Dianan, and the possibility of encountering him could not be ruled out. No matter how arrogant and conceited Granny Li was, she knew that Qi Yu was not an ordinary person. If she encountered him, she would not be able to gain any advantage. Finally, she came to a stronghold. Dianan was completely infiltrated by the Azure Dragon Palace. Dozens of strongholds were set up, and many martial experts were hidden in each stronghold. These martial artists did not have any other activities except for cultivation. Naturally, the speed of their improvement was self-evident. However, when Tang Zheng stepped into this stronghold, his expression immediately changed. The aura of this place was completely different from other places. Moreover, there was an invisible energy lingering in the air. If he did not come close, he would not have noticed it. The power of the stars. Tang Zheng immediately saw the clue. This energy was actually the power of the stars. The power of the stars slowly flowed towards the stronghold. Obviously, someone was absorbing it. His heart lit up as he suddenly realized, martial artists are absorbing the power of the stars while cultivating, but they have no way to directly absorb the power of the stars from the ninth heaven. They have to do it this way. This was like a water supply system. People did not directly draw water from rivers, but through waterworks. The water in the air was like the reservoir of a waterworks, continuously supplying the users. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. This meant that the warriors were not as strong as he thought. They could not directly absorb the power of the stars from the nine heavens, so they could only rely on this method. If they did not have the power of the stars to replenish themselves, then they would not be able to continue increasing their cultivation. This was worse than the situation of martial artists in the past. In the past, martial artists could continuously cultivate, and their inner strength was produced from the inside out without the help of the outside world. But now it was completely different. His heart trembled as he thought of another point. Although martial artists nowadays had improved their cultivation, they had to rely on Ji Wuxiang. Without Ji Wuxiang's continuous supply of the power of the stars, they could not cultivate at all. Therefore, once they had tasted the sweetness, they could never leave Ji Wuxiang. This was more effective than any drug control. For martial artists, they knew that they could continue to cultivate and become more powerful, but their path was cut off. This was worse than killing them. Therefore, they would always pledge their allegiance to Ji Wuxiang. Brilliant, really brilliant. Tang Zheng secretly cursed. He had to admit that Ji Wuxiang's method was brilliant. Granny Li had already entered the stronghold and disappeared. After a while, she came out again. Apparently, she had arranged everything and was ready to go to the next stronghold. Tang Zheng guessed her purpose, but he did not chase after her. He had figured out the characteristics of the strongholds, which were the power of the stars. Perhaps others would ignore the power of the stars, but he would not. In that case, he would uproot all of Ji Wuxiang's strongholds. This account would naturally be on Qi Yu's head. He did not believe that Ji Wuxiang would be able to hold back. He would definitely be furious and would not give up until he fought with Qi Yu to the death. He took a step forward and quietly appeared in the stronghold, instantly attracting countless gazes. The cultivators immediately realized that these newcomers had ill intentions and attacked without hesitation. Their attacks were clean and efficient, and their killing intent soared. A few minutes later, Tang Zheng walked out of the stronghold. With a rumble, the stronghold collapsed. As for the martial artists inside, they all died. In order to end the battle quickly, Tang Zheng did not hold back at all and directly used the heaven-devouring technique. All the martial artists were sucked into the black hole and turned into wisps of vitality in the heavenly realm. He also used the soul-searching technique, but did not find anything useful. They still did not know the secret of Ji Wuxiang's transformation of martial artists. They also did not know anything about the Azure Dragon Hall's headquarters. Usually, it was Granny Li who came to find them. This was a one-way communication, so Tang Zheng could not find anything. Ji Wuxiang, you cunning fox. You really have taken every conceivable possibility into account. So strong. He raised his head and found the power of the stars still hovering in the air. The corners of his mouth curled up. Wasn't this a free gift? How could he let it go? With a wave of his hand, the power of the stars poured down like a flood and he absorbed it into his body. Then, he wandered around southern Yunnan. As long as the power of the stars was detected, almost all the martial artists were in trouble. Chapter 14:12. Almost all of the strongholds had been destroyed. These cultivators had been recruited by Ji Wuxiang with great difficulty, and there was no lack of notorious bandits among them who had committed heinous crimes. However, Ji Wuxiang didn't care about them. As long as they could be used by him and work for him, he would welcome them with open arms. In fact, only this group of desperados would be willing to serve him without hesitation and kill everywhere. In the end, the matter was exposed. There was a small accident during a surprise attack. A cultivator dialed Granny Li's number, but before he could say a word, he was sucked into a black hole. But it had already been exposed, so how could someone as smart as Granny Li not know that there was a problem? She hurriedly called several bases, but there was no reply. Her face turned gloomy in an instant. She immediately returned to a stronghold as fast as she could, only to find that it had become a pile of rubble. There was no sign of a single cultivator. They're all gone. She was dumbfounded. After a long time, she finally recovered and flew into a rage. It must be Qi Yu. Besides him, who else would do this? She clenched her teeth and said firmly, I was trying my best to find him, but it turns out that he has already launched an attack on my Azure Dragon Hall. Suddenly, her eyes turned and she exclaimed, That's not right. Why were these strongholds not attacked when I came here? Qi Yu seems to be following my footsteps. She was smart and immediately understood. She regretted it. He was following me. I was leading the way for him, allowing him to find one stronghold after another. This cruel reality almost drove her crazy. The Azure Dragon Hall had gathered a little bit of wealth with great difficulty, but because of her negligence, it was almost all ruined. It was ridiculous that she had been so determined to catch Qi Yu. This was a great irony. Qi Yu, where are you? Come out for this old lady. She roared to the sky, her eyes almost spitting fire as she looked around fiercely. At this moment, she wished she could cut Qi Yu into pieces and eat him alive. You're looking for me? Suddenly, a voice floated into her ears. Granny Li turned around abruptly. She was shocked, but her eyes immediately locked onto the young face not far away. It was Song Yu's body and Chi Yu's soul. "Chi Yu, you finally showed up." Granny Li clenched her teeth and said fiercely. "You called me so urgently. If I didn't come, wouldn't you be disappointed?" Tang Zhang said with a fake smile. Granny Li glared at him and said, "I was very disappointed that I couldn't kill you with my own hands. Now, I'm not disappointed anymore. With the High Lord's protection, I can finally see you. I can kill you with my own hands. There's no need for the High Lord to do anything." Tang Zhang remained unmoved and said indifferently, "You're so confident. Do you really think you can easily kill me? This is Dianan, not your territory. You don't know how powerful Dianan is," Granny Li said. "Haha, is that so? Then I'd like to see how powerful Dianan is," Tang Zhang said with a smile that was not a smile. In order to avoid wasting time, Tang Zhang decided to make the first move to gain the upper hand and directly launched an attack. He pressed his hands into the air, and a gust of wind blew and black clouds rolled, immediately trapping Granny Li. Granny Li's eyes turned cold as she put away her contempt. She understood that her situation was not as optimistic as she thought it would be. But she would not give up. A cold light flashed in her hand, and the crutch she had been using flew up. A cold light gathered, exuding a terrifying aura. Tang Zhang looked at her curiously, analyzing her strength compared to before. He had to admit that Granny Li's posture was very powerful. Anyone with a slightly guilty conscience would be directly scared away by this momentum. Killing is not just a matter of having an imposing aura. Tang Zhang curled his lips and his 10 fingers contracted inward, forming a claw. The gust of wind and black clouds contracted inward, and an invisible pressure directly pressed down on Granny Li, as if to flatten and crush her. This was just an appetizer, and Tang Zhang did not use his full strength. Granny Li knew the strength of the enemy, so instead, she used her strongest strength to counterattack or kill him in one blow. However, her thinking was too simple. Granny Li's cultivation was higher than Ji Wuxiang's. She had reached the martial king realm before, and after Ji Wuxiang's transformation, she soared to the sky and directly broke through to the martial emperor realm. From this, it could be seen how powerful her strength was and how terrifying her attacks were. She pointed her crutch forward, and the power of the stars poured out like a flood, hitting the gust of wind and black clouds. It shattered, and the wind swept away the clouds, disappearing without a trace. Kacha! A crack appeared on the crutch, but the crack did not expand. Granny Li's pupils shrank as she finally realized that she was an opponent of the enemy. Her face immediately changed, and the light on her crutch increased greatly, like a blazing sun. This was a phenomenon caused by the light of the star power. The light was blazing, and wherever it passed, the air seemed to be scorched. The heat boiled, and the heat waves rolled. It was a pity that people who had experienced the damage caused by the soul of the Golden Crow were not afraid of this little bit of damage. It could not even be considered as a scratch. Tang Zhang stepped forward and directly arrived outside of Granny Li's stroll. He sneered and said, "Is this all you've got? The warrior transformed by Ji Wuxiang is only so, and you still want to fight against me? You're really wishful thinking." How could Granny Li admit defeat? She stared hatefully at Tang Zhang and said, "Chi Yu, so what if I fight against you? The strength of the warrior transformed by the High Lord is not something you can guess." "Is that so? Strong?" Hee, I didn't see the slightest clue. If the warrior was strong, why was it that I wiped out all of them, and no one was able to compete with me? Tang Zhang snorted and asked with a sneer. Granny Li's cheeks flushed red. This was a clean slap to her face, causing her to lose face. She angrily said, "You used despicable means to track me down and harm them." "Despicable means?" Tang Zheng laughed. "You really think too highly of yourself. I didn't need to track you down to find them." "How did you find them?" Granny Li asked incredulously. The implication was that the stronghold was hidden so well, so how could it be found by Tang Zheng? "Because I know your secret, your weakness," Tang Zheng said firmly. Granny Li's face changed slightly, and her heart was nervous. This was their secret, so how did he know about their weakness? If she knew that this was just Tang Zheng's speculation, she would definitely be taken aback. Of course, she would not admit it. She deliberately said in a disdainful tone, "Chi Yu, keep dreaming. You still want to find out our secret." Tang Zheng smiled gently and said, Do you really think so? Hee hee. Then I'll reveal the riddle now. Humph, what riddle? Don't think too highly of yourself. Granny Lee snorted. Chapter 14:13. When Granny Lee heard this, she was dumbfounded. Her eyes were as big as a cow's. She stammered. How did you know? Tang Zheng laughed. Is it that hard to see? Granny Lee was startled. Only then did she realize who she was talking to. He was Qi Yu, a legendary figure, so it was not impossible for him to see through this. This was indeed the shortcoming of a cultivator. If anyone could absorb star force from the ninth heaven, their cultivation speed would be greatly improved. Granny Lee had also asked Ji Wuxiang this question. Could a cultivator directly absorb star force from the ninth heaven? Ji Wuxiang did not answer directly. Granny Lee understood and did not ask again, but as smart as she was, she immediately thought of another possibility. The High Lord might have a way to overcome this shortcoming, or rather, this shortcoming was deliberately created by him, because in this way, cultivators could not escape from his control. However, Granny Lee did not dare to voice her guess and could only bury it deep in her heart. Seeing Granny Lee speechless, Tang Zheng sneered. This is what you think you can rely on. It's like walking with only one leg. You can't go far. Humph, you want to beat us? You're delusional. After a slight pause he continued. Today, I'll let you know what a gap is, a gap as wide as a chasm. Granny Lee was shocked and quickly raised her head, staring at the other party in horror. In a flash, Tang Zheng had already rushed towards her, his big hand grabbing at Granny Lee, and a gust of wind swept her up. Granny Lee did not struggle, but circulated her cultivation, causing star force to flow out of her body and spread out like a sharp knife, tearing the wind apart. Whoosh! She waved her hand, and the walking stick flew up as well. It kept spinning, and in an instant, the wind was torn to pieces. There was already a crack on the crutch, and after such a fierce attack, with a crack, spiderweb-like cracks spread all over the crutch. Granny Lee stared blankly as her weapon was completely destroyed, turning into pieces that drifted away with the wind. At the same time, Tang Zheng took a big stride forward, completely closing the distance between them and arriving in front of her. His big hand reached out to grab Granny Lee. Granny Lee retreated in a panic as a sharp star force appeared in front of her. This star force was like a sharp blade, attacking Tang Zheng with an unstoppable momentum. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up in a mysterious smile. A black hole suddenly appeared in his palm, disintegrating the fierce star power in an instant, and a huge attractive force pulled Granny Lee in. Granny Lee's face suddenly changed. She stared at the black hole in front of her in horror and shouted, You are not Qi Yu. This black hole was too familiar. It was like a symbol, and as long as one saw it, they would never forget it. This was the sky-swallowing technique that Tang Zheng was famous for, a technique that the devil race had once dismissed as useless. However, in the hands of Tang Zheng, it was the sky-swallowing technique. You are Tang Zheng. Granny Lee screamed in disbelief. Tang Zheng smiled indifferently. It's too late for you to know now. Since he had openly displayed the sky-swallowing technique, he naturally had nothing to fear. Or rather, he had no intention of letting Granny Lee go. Granny Lee also thought of this and felt a chill in her heart, but then she suddenly realized. So it was you who pretended to be Qi Yu and stirred up trouble in Dianan. You wanted to provoke the conflict between the Lord and Qi Yu so that they would kill each other, so that you could sit back and reap the benefits. Tang Zheng did not deny it and said, You guessed right, but even if I didn't provoke them, they are still mortal enemies. I just poured a little oil on the fire. You are so ruthless, Granny Lee said through gritted teeth. Ruthless? Tang Zheng laughed. Granny Lee, are you qualified to say this? You are 1,000 times more ruthless than me. Granny Lee was startled and speechless, but her heart was in her throat. She secretly made up her mind that she must pass this message to the Lord, lest he be used. But in the current situation, how could she pass the message back? Her only hope was to survive. Delay. Once the Lord found out something was wrong, he would definitely come to rescue her. At that time, Tang Zheng would definitely not be the Lord's opponent. She could even capture him directly and turn the tables. Seeing her expression fluctuating and silent, Tang Zheng jokingly said, You want to delay time and wait for reinforcements, right? You. Granny Lee was stunned. She was immediately seen through by Tang Zheng. Seeing her reaction, Tang Zheng became more and more certain of his guess and said, Unfortunately, you made the wrong decision. Granny Li, today is the day you die. As for why you want to die, I don't need to repeat the reason. Granny Li certainly knew the reason. There was no need to say more. The two sides were mortal enemies. If you don't die, I will live. If you kill me, the Lord will definitely take revenge. Whether it is you or the people around you, they will all die and be buried with me. Granny Li threatened. Tang Zheng laughed. Unfortunately, Ji Wuxiang doesn't know that I killed you. You. Granny Li was speechless again. Tang Zheng was right. Ji Wuxiang would only think that Qi Yu killed her and put the blame on Qi Yu. You really are a good schemer. Granny Li gnashed her teeth. Tang Zheng smiled and said, You flatter me. I learned this from you. Granny Li was speechless. Both sides were scheming against each other, but this time, Tang Zheng won. Don't try to delay time. Just go in peace. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed coldly as he stared fiercely at Granny Li. With a thought, the suction force of the black hole increased greatly. Granny Li struggled desperately, but it was useless. Although she was a martial emperor, there was still a world of difference between her and Tang Zheng's Mahayana realm. Ah! She screamed in despair as she was sucked into Tang Zheng's hand by the black hole. In a flash, Tang Zheng's big hand clasped her head. You're going to use the soul-searching technique. Granny Li screamed. She obviously had a good understanding of Tang Zheng's divine powers and recognized it at a glance. She knew what kind of divine powers the soul-searching technique was. All her secrets would be exposed. Not only would she die, but even her last remaining value would be squeezed out. She was unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. She wanted to commit suicide, but she was completely under Tang Zheng's control. She couldn't even kill herself. Tang Zheng knew that these people were desperados. At the last moment, they were willing to sacrifice themselves in order to keep their secrets. So, he quickly used the soul-searching technique. Now that his power had increased greatly, the power of the soul-searching technique naturally rose as well. Ah! She screamed at the top of her lungs. Her eyes turned white and she became demented. With her cultivation as a martial emperor, if Tang Zheng used the soul-searching technique in the past, although he could find the information he wanted, he would never be able to make her demented. But now it was different. The after-effects of the soul-searching technique had increased with his cultivation. In a flash, Tang Zheng released his hand. His eyes were shining, and the corners of his mouth raised into a satisfied smile. Hee, Ji Wuxiang, your secret is hidden very deeply. So many warriors don't know about it, but you didn't hide it from Granny Li. Now I know your secret, Tang Zheng muttered to himself. If Ji Wuxiang heard this, he would definitely regret it. The most important secret should be known by himself. He couldn't even tell his closest subordinates. Otherwise, there would be a risk of it being leaked. But there was no medicine for regret in the world. His secret had been leaked. It turns out to be so easy to transform warriors. No wonder he could transform so many warriors in such a short time. However, Ji Wuxiang is really smart. He deliberately left a shortcoming, so that he can firmly control the warriors under him. They have to rely on him to absorb the power of the stars. In fact, this shortcoming was deliberately created by Ji Wuxiang. It can be completely overcome. It turned out that as long as a warrior was transformed, they could directly absorb the power of the stars from the ninth heaven. There was no need to absorb it indirectly. But this was obviously not in line with Ji Wuxiang's demands and goals. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. Ji Wuxiang was really good at controlling others. Ji Wuxiang, I'll let you experience a saying. Success is due to the same person, failure is also due to the same person. You relied on the power of the stars to win over so many warriors, so I will also use the power of the stars to counter you. I will make you betray your friends and family and become a loner. Tang Zheng suddenly had a brainwave and thought of a countermeasure. He lowered his head and glanced at Granny Li. She had become a useless person. Except for the power of the stars, she had no other use. Tang Zheng naturally wouldn't waste it. With a thought, the power of the stars was continuously absorbed into his body. Then, the black hole flashed and Granny Li disappeared, turning into a wisp of vitality in the heavenly realm. He would not leave Granny Li's body to Ji Wuxiang. How smart was Ji Wuxiang? If he saw some clues, then everything he had done would be in vain. He quietly retreated and didn't act again. Although there were other strongholds in Dianan, he was not allowed to act anymore. Even Granny Li noticed the abnormality. Ji Wuxiang would soon be aware of this. To avoid exposing his true identity, he had to hide. Now it was time to watch a good show. Ji Wuxiang did know that there was an accident in the stronghold. He immediately guessed that it was Qi Yu. He immediately contacted Granny Li, but couldn't get in touch with her. He was shocked and his face was gloomy. He had realized the seriousness of the problem. Then, several pieces of news gathered in his hands. They were all about the stronghold being uprooted. Even the corpses were not left behind. He, who was usually unable to control his emotions, also felt the anger in his heart soar. He realized that the severity of the matter was far beyond his imagination. Qi Yu, you've gone too far. His eyes were cold as if he wanted to eat someone. Whoosh! His figure flashed like a gust of wind blowing through Dianan. Wherever he passed, no one could see his whereabouts. He went from one stronghold to another but didn't find any clues. Finally, he stopped in front of a stronghold. His eyes were like torches as he said coldly, "Granny Li went missing here." "No, she's dead." He didn't believe that Granny Li had a chance to survive in Qi Yu's hands. Like the other warriors, she must have died a long time ago. If other warriors died, he wouldn't be shocked. They were all pawns that could be replaced by others. Chapter 14:14. There was no wind, but the gravel still flew up. With Ji Wuxiang as the center, countless strands of qi rose from the ground and danced around him. He closed his eyes, but it was clearer than when he opened them. The qi affected the gravel, like angry dragons, circling around Ji Wuxiang. The qi was sharp and powerful. After an unknown amount of time. Chapter 14:15. Ji Wuxiang closed his eyes and seemed to be asleep, but every trace of change could not escape his discerning eyes. Imperceptibly, he understood everything in his heart. Closing his eyes was better than opening thousands of eyes. In Dianan, every person and every object, whether living or dead, formed a vague shadow in his mind. Chapter 14:16. Could it be that Qi Yu had some kind of supernatural power that could restrain the power of the stars? He stared at Qi Yu with a burning gaze, but he couldn't figure out the truth even after a long time. Tang Zheng had already seen some clues from Ji Wuxiang's reaction. Ji Wuxiang was a smart person, so it was easy for him to figure out the problem. Chapter 14:17. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief, completely unable to understand why the damage caused by the power of the stars was so small. Could it be that Qi Yu had some kind of divine ability that could restrain the power of the stars? He stared at Qi Yu with a burning gaze, unable to see through it for a long time. Tang Zheng had already seen some clues from Ji Wuxiang's reaction. Ji Wuxiang was a smart person and could easily see through the problem. In order to avoid being exposed, Tang Zheng hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. Ji Wuxiang, my Ninely tribe has thousands of divine abilities. If you want to deal with me with this little trick of yours, you're really thinking too simply. Ji Wuxiang's eyes narrowed slightly like slits. What kind of divine ability can break through the power of the stars? Tang Zheng pretended to be profound as he laughed, but did not reply. Ji Wuxiang understood that he could not find an answer. Then he could only continue to attack. The power of the celestial chess was far more than this. With a thought, the power of the stars also changed and gathered together, finally condensing into a large blade. Whoosh! The blade fiercely fell down with an imposing aura, causing people's hearts to tremble in fear. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank slightly as he stared straight at the large blade. He could clearly feel the power of the large blade condensed from starlight. Where the blade pointed, it was invincible. Tang Zheng hurriedly urged his power. His hands were suffused with a dazzling light, like two balls of flames. Crack! As the large blade fell, Tang Zheng's hands tightly clamped the blade. Two rays of light were like dazzling sparks, splashing in all directions. These specks of light floated in this space like stars twinkling in the vast Milky Way. Ji Wuxiang's eyes flashed with a hint of fierceness as he shouted, "Cut the galaxy!" The light of the large blade increased greatly. In an instant, it turned into a large blade and suddenly sank down. The galaxy flowed. Tang Zheng's hands subconsciously loosened, and the blade fell from between his hands, landing on the galaxy. The river of stars was torn apart and collapsed. The starlight shot in all directions like arrows. Tang Zheng was injured by the sharp blade, and blood flowed out. However, before the blood could drip down from Tang Zheng's palm, it froze. Tang Zheng's expression was solemn. He pushed his hand forward and a wall of wind appeared in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. The starlight was blocked by the wind wall, and the sound of collision was continuous, like a series of thunderclaps. Kacha! Cracks appeared on the wind wall, and it quickly collapsed. The starry broadsword's momentum was like a rainbow as it quickly followed up and attacked Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had nowhere to run, but he couldn't unleash any of his powerful divine abilities. Seeing that Didao was already in front of him, Tang Zheng stared at Didao with burning eyes. The saber was condensed from the power of the stars, and its might was immense. Facing it, ordinary people would have no other choice but to face it head-on. However, Tang Zheng was not an ordinary person. He understood too much about the power of the stars. Therefore, his eyes suddenly lit up as he discovered something unusual about the broadsword. No one else would notice this. However, it was discovered by Tang Zheng with his sharp senses. The starry broadsword relied on the heavenly chest to continuously provide energy. If the heavenly chest was disrupted and the energy was out of balance, then the starry broadsword would collapse on itself, and it would not be a threat at all. Could Tang Zheng cause the heavenly chest to be disrupted? Of course, because he understood the heavenly chest too well. However, there was one thing he had to be careful of, and that was to not arouse Ji Wuxiang's vigilance. Ji Wuxiang knew very well that in this world, other than himself, only Tang Zheng understood the heavenly chest the most. He was the one who had taught Tang Zheng that in the past. With Tang Zheng's intelligence, Ji Wuxiang was sure that he would definitely have a new understanding. As for how much understanding Tang Zheng had of the heavenly chess, he couldn't guess at all. Coincidentally, Tang Zheng also knew this, so he planned to use this to catch his opponent off guard and catch him off guard. However, at the same time, he had to avoid letting Ji Wuxiang see through his understanding of the heavenly chess. This way, he wouldn't invite trouble and let Ji Wuxiang guess his true identity. With a thought, a slight change occurred to the heavenly chess, but this change was very slight. Ji Wuxiang's entire attention was focused on Tang Zheng, so he didn't even notice this change. In fact, this was the result of Ji Wuxiang's absolute confidence. He definitely didn't believe that Qi Yu could control the power of the stars. When he saw the starry broadsword falling towards Tang Zheng, he smiled confidently, thinking that Tang Zheng was already at the end of his rope. Tang Zheng didn't move. His eyes were calm, and everywhere he looked, there was only the sharp edge of the blade. However, in private, a slight change occurred to the heavenly chess, and this change was subtle. In a short while, it developed from a small part to the overall situation. Now's the time. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He put his palms together, and a long sword made of essential qi suddenly appeared in his hands. Whoosh! The long sword slashed down. The power of this sword was beyond imagination, and it went straight for the starry broadsword. Ji Wuxiang narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't expect that at the last moment, when the outcome was already decided, his opponent would still want to go all out. This was simply an idiot's dream. That was what Ji Wuxiang thought. You overestimate yourself. He curled his lips. Under the effect of the heavenly chess, the power of the starry broadsword had been raised to the extreme, and the pressure was very frightening. If it were an ordinary cultivator or martial artist, they would have been scared to the ground by the pressure of the starry broadsword. Tang Zheng could naturally see through Ji Wuxiang's thoughts, but he was secretly delighted, because he was also fully prepared. Bang! The broadsword and the starry broadsword clashed. Ji Wuxiang's expression suddenly froze. Because the scene he expected didn't happen. His smile froze, as if he had been petrified, and he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Both the broadsword and the sword shattered. The sword shattered, this was what Ji Wuxiang expected, but how could his starry broadsword shatter? The starry broadsword's aura and pressure were far more powerful than that of the long sword, so how could both be destroyed and shatter? Tang Zheng was overjoyed. This counterattack was really fast and accurate, and it was too successful. The slight change in the heavenly chess was almost negligible, but it successfully took effect when the long sword hit the starry broadsword, causing the heavenly chest to be disrupted, and the power of the stars was out of balance. That starry broadsword naturally felt a decisive threat, and it was destroyed together with the long sword. When he saw Ji Wuxiang's reaction, he knew that he didn't notice anything strange. This step was too dangerous. But he still didn't have the next step. This step could ensure that Ji Wuxiang wouldn't suspect that there was a problem with the heavenly chess. Tang Zheng puffed, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. As if he had been hit by a heavy bomb, he flew backwards, broke a pillar, and made a big hole in the wall. He fell out of the room in a sorry state. He did this on purpose, so that he could create an illusion, so that Ji Wuxiang would think that Qi Yu had used all his strength and fought with all his might to shatter the starry broadsword, and not that the starry broadsword was destroyed because of some other reason. This would allow Ji Wuxiang to maintain his usual confidence and pride, and make him look down on Qi Yu. This way, he would seek revenge on Qi Yu in the future. Otherwise, if Qi Yu broke his heavenly chess so easily, he wouldn't have the guts to seek revenge on Qi Yu. This chain of events, like inviting the enemy into a trap, could completely dispel Ji Wuxiang's doubts. Chapter 14:18. Ji Wuxiang was indeed suspicious. However, when he saw Qi Yu flying backwards, his eyebrows immediately rose. Humph, you dare to go against the celestial chess. You overestimate yourself. Even so, Ji Wuxiang was still shocked. This was because the strength that Qi Yu had displayed had deeply shocked him. He had actually defeated the starry saber at the risk of being injured. Ji Wuxiang did not suspect that this was a problem with the celestial chess. Tang Zheng stood up from the ruins outside the house, looked at Ji Wuxiang from afar, and made a decision in his heart. He saw a trace of pride in Ji Wuxiang's eyes, which meant that Ji Wuxiang did not suspect anything. His plan succeeded. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth in a sorry state, and said, "The celestial chess is indeed worthy of its reputation." As soon as he finished speaking, he shot out like a cannonball, flying into the distance. Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold, and he shouted sternly, "Qi Yu, you want to escape? You have already entered my celestial chess. Do you think it is so easy to escape?" Ji Wuxiang immediately chased after him, but he was one step too slow. Tang Zheng's figure disappeared in front of his eyes. However, he was not worried. Dianan was under the control of the celestial chess, and any movement in the wind could not escape his eyes. In fact, it was so. When Ji Wuxiang activated the celestial chess, the trace of Qi Yu immediately appeared in his mind. He smiled coldly. "Qi Yu, let's see where you can run to." After Tang Zheng saw the power of the celestial chess, he was also very clear about this. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he flew straight out of the city. "Ji Wuxiang, you would never have dreamed that the person you are chasing is someone who knows the celestial chess very well, right?" Tang Zheng laughed proudly, and his feet shook. He did not fly in a straight line, but flew in a strange trajectory. Ji Wuxiang was overjoyed to see that he was getting closer and closer to Qi Yu. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he exclaimed in surprise. "What happened? Did we lose track of him?" They had almost reached the border of Dianan. Tang Zheng had chosen this moment to make a sudden move and evade Tianqi's detection. As long as one's cultivation was profound enough, and one had a sufficient understanding of the heavenly chess, it would not be difficult to achieve this. Tang Zheng did just that. He chose the right time and suddenly made his move, disappearing silently from the celestial chess. Ji Wuxiang didn't believe that Qi Yu could disappear from the heavenly chess so mysteriously. He immediately activated the heavenly chess, wanting to continue investigating. However, after half a day, he still found nothing. The shock and despair in his eyes could not be concealed. Qi Yu had really successfully escaped from the celestial chess. Ji Wuxiang had no choice but to stop. At this point, it was futile to continue searching. He frowned and racked his brains. Finally, he had a flash of inspiration. He guessed something. This is the border of southern Yunnan, which is also the border of the area controlled by the heavenly chess. Could it be that the power of the heavenly chess has weakened? That's why Qi Yu was able to take advantage of it. That must be it. That's the only way to explain everything. Qi Yu, you're really cunning. You managed to slip away right under my nose. However, on second thought, Even a famous person like Qi Yu could only run away when facing him. This was enough to show how powerful he was. He was truly superior to Qi Yu. Qi Yu killed so many of my men. Do you think you can escape just by running away? Humph, how is that possible? Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold and gloomy. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. Qi Yu, just you wait. I'll visit your headquarters very soon and make you pay in blood. Ji Wuxiang had made up his mind. He would go to Qi Yu's headquarters and give him a fatal blow. Tang Zheng had slipped away. He had safely left southern Yunnan. He let out a long sigh of relief and calmed down. He looked in the direction of southern Yunnan from afar and muttered to himself, Ji Wuxiang, you won't suspect anything now. You'll definitely attack Qi Yu. Then I'll just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Southern Yunnan was full of mystery at night. Especially in Tang Zheng's eyes, those chess games that were faintly discernible in the air had infinite power. He had also experienced the power of the heavenly chess. He wanted to study it more deeply. As long as he understood more about the heavenly chess, he would have more advantages in future battles. He could even decide the outcome of the battle. In addition, he already knew Ji Wuxiang's biggest secret. Once he returned, he could let the martial artists around him also have the power of the stars. Moreover, it was not the weak power of Ji Wuxiang's subordinates. They could truly absorb the power of the stars freely. Whether it was Yi Dingdang or Wu, they would all have great improvements and their strength would increase greatly. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, summoned the somersault cloud, and soared into the sky. Xiaobai came out of the Sumeru world again and stood beside Tang Zheng. He said bitterly, Master, I couldn't help you on this trip to southern Yunnan. Tang Zheng laughed and patted his head. What's there to be depressed about? There are still many battles. When the time comes, you will have the chance to show off. Xiaobai nodded. The somersault cloud carried them and flew towards the capital. However, before they could go too far, a figure swept past from afar. Its speed was faster than a plane. However, Tang Zheng and Xiaobai's pupils shrank. They recognized that it was a person. His speed was extremely fast. He must be an expert. Both sides looked at each other. Xiaobai said, Master, this is an expert. I can feel his aura. Tang Zheng's expression was solemn. The other party was of course an expert. Fortunately, he was hiding in the somersault cloud. Otherwise, he would have been discovered by the other party. Such an expert appeared in the human world. He would definitely not turn a blind eye. As for whether the other party was a martial artist or a cultivator, he could not guess for the time being. This was because after transformation, martial artists could also fly. Chase. Tang Zheng immediately made a decision. Xiaobai was eager to try. His cheeks were red with excitement and he nodded fiercely. The somersault cloud chased after the mysterious person. Both sides were extremely fast, like two rays of light. Both sides chased for an unknown period of time. The enemy in front suddenly slowed down. Tang Zheng also subconsciously slowed down. Whoosh! Then, a sharp sound broke through the air. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He saw a ray of light shoot from the hand of the person in front of him to a certain place in front of him. Tang Zheng was aghast. He saw this ray of light shoot towards a cloud. This cloud was no different from an ordinary cloud. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, this cloud was completely different. This is not an ordinary cloud. It contains supernatural power. It is some kind of camouflage tool. His fiery eyes of truth immediately saw through it. The facts also proved his guess. When the ray of light hit the cloud, a dazzling golden light shot out from the cloud with great power. The golden light was almost blinding. However, Tang Zheng stared straight at the golden light. He was reluctant to look away for a moment. What was this? Tang Zheng had an answer in his mind. Chapter 14:19. The golden light met the attack and rumbled like a thunderbolt on a clear day. The golden light dissipated, and a crack was torn in the clouds, like a huge scar. Rays of golden light were faintly discernible in the clouds. Xiaobai's eyes widened as he recognized the true appearance behind the clouds. He couldn't help but exclaim, Golden Dragon, it's him. Tang Zheng nodded with a sullen face. It's indeed the Golden Dragon. When he saw the golden light in the clouds earlier, He had already recognized the true appearance behind the clouds. Moving clouds and summoning rain was one of the dragon race's special skills. When Tang Zhang saw this unusual cloud, his heart skipped a beat. When he saw the golden light shooting out from the clouds, he no longer had any doubts. The one hiding in the clouds was the golden dragon that he knew. Back then, the golden dragon was afraid that the dragon slayer would discover its whereabouts and implicate Tang Zhang, so it resolutely left, ignoring Tang Zhang's urging to stay. Since then, although Tang Zhang had left behind the whereabouts of the golden dragon, he had no clue. He never expected to find the whereabouts of the golden dragon near southern Yunnan today. Not only that, but the golden dragon was also in a very difficult situation. It was chased by a strong man and had to use clouds as a camouflage. Tang Zhang locked onto the enemy of the golden dragon from afar. His eyes narrowed slightly like slits. Dragon Slayer. Tang Zhang gritted his teeth and said word by word. He had almost died at the hands of the Dragon Slayer, so he naturally wouldn't forget him. The Dragon Slayer's strength was as strong as ever, especially when it came to killing the Golden Dragon. The Golden Dragon was obviously powerless. When Tang Zhang saw this scene, he could no longer sit back and ignore it. He quietly approached the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer's attention was all on the Golden Dragon. He had spent a lot of energy to find the Golden Dragon, and the other party seemed to have some way to avoid him. However, he was one step ahead. In the end, he found the Golden Dragon and chased it all the way. The Golden Dragon's strength was beyond his expectations, and it almost slipped away from his eyes. The Golden Dragon was right in front of him, and the dragon's soul was like the most delicious delicacy, as if it was summoning a hungry man like him. He stared at the clouds with shining eyes, as if he wanted to see through the clouds and see the Golden Dragon in the clouds. Die! He let out a low roar, and like a muffled thunderclap, he attacked the Golden Dragon in the clouds. He was determined to win with this attack. This was his belief. The Golden Dragon watched helplessly as the fierce attack came at it at lightning speed. It wanted to dodge or escape. However, that strike just now had consumed a lot of his energy. Moreover, the chase had exhausted him both physically and mentally. He originally thought that he could avoid the Dragon Slayer, but he didn't expect that he would be so naive. Hope was beautiful, but reality was cruel. The Dragon Slayer was much more powerful than he had imagined. No wonder so many seniors of the Dragon Clan had died at his hands. He had wanted to avenge his clansmen, but now it seemed like it was just wishful thinking. Could it be that I can't escape the fate of the other Dragon Clan seniors? Am I going to follow in their footsteps and have my dragon soul absorbed by the Dragon Slayer? The Golden Dragon was in despair. He activated his energy again and prepared to fight for the last time. Suddenly, a cloud flew into its line of sight. The speed of this cloud was extremely fast, and it was very rare. More importantly, it was very familiar with this cloud. Somersault Cloud. He called out the cloud's name with one sentence. That means he's here. The Golden Dragon was both excited and worried. He left the capital to avoid bringing trouble to Tang Zhang. Now, Tang Zhang had taken the initiative to sacrifice himself to save him. His original plan was ruined. Of course, he didn't blame Tang Zhang. Instead, he was touched. The strength of the Dragon Slayer was something that Tang Zhang knew as well as it. But Tang Zhang could overcome the threat of death and save it without hesitation. In the eyes of the Golden Dragon, the somersault cloud was getting closer and closer to the Dragon Slayer. But the Dragon Slayer didn't seem to notice. A streak of cold light shot out from the somersault cloud like a sharp arrow, accurately attacking the Dragon Slayer. Finally, a cold light appeared in the Dragon Slayer's eyes. He didn't even turn his head and attacked with a backhand move. At the last moment, he finally noticed something. He didn't have time to turn around, so he took the opportunity to meet this sharp attack. However, when the two hands came into contact, the Heaven-Devouring Book was immediately activated. A black hole appeared in Tang Zhang's palm. A huge suction force was like a rope, coiling around and binding the Dragon Slayer tightly. The Dragon Slayer's face was stern. Ever since he came to this world, he had never met anyone who dared to provoke him like this. He was going to give the other party a good beating and let him know the consequences of offending him. He took the opportunity to attack with a backhand move. Light bloomed in his hand and hit the black hole. Boom! There was a loud sound that made people's hearts tremble. The black hole vibrated violently. Tang Zhang had no choice but to appear from the somersault cloud,
and the dragon slayer quickly turned around. Their eyes met, and his pupils shrank. Naturally, he recognized this enemy that he had fought before. He snorted coldly in his heart and made up his mind not to give the other party a third chance. Tang Zhang also saw the dragon slayer's expression, and his heart trembled. It seemed that the dragon slayer was going to use his trump card. The dragon slayer had indeed used one of his trump cards. Its power was peerless. He was confident that victory was in his hands. Be careful. The golden dragon had already appeared in the clouds. The shrunken dragon's body was coiled up, and its two huge dragon eyes stared worriedly at Tang Zheng. It couldn't help but cry out. Humph, I didn't expect you two to be together. You actually managed to get away with it in front of me, the dragon slayer said with annoyance. At the same time, power burst forth from his palm. The light in his palm became even more blazing, like a red sun. The black hole shook violently as if it would collapse at any time. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. He was shocked by the dragon slayer's counterattack, but he wasn't afraid. Retreating would only lead to death. Not only him, but even the golden dragon wouldn't be able to escape. Since enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road, and the old enemy had reunited, then he would let go of everything and release his strongest power. Tang Zheng activated the sky-devouring technique. The black light expanded, and the black hole immediately stabilized. A vast amount of energy was sucked into the black hole, and this energy gathered in the heaven realm. Absorption. This was the successful counterattack that Tang Zheng had used all his strength. Moreover, it was very effective. The dragon slayer's mind was sharp, and his perception was top-notch. He immediately realized that his power was being sucked into the black hole. How could he not understand what was going on? He stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes and roared, "You still want to absorb my power? Dream on! Break!" As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon slayer's palm shone brightly. Its power far exceeded that of the others. Most importantly, the majestic energy rushed toward the black hole. Boom! The black hole shook violently again, and the frequency of the shaking became higher and higher. It seemed that it would disappear at any time. I just got home today, and I'll be back to normal tomorrow. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1420. The Dragon Slayer was very familiar with Tang Zheng. During the battle at Mount Buzhou, Tang Zheng had used the power of Mount Buzhou to scare the Dragon Slayer away, allowing him to escape death. The Dragon Slayer had traversed many worlds, but he had never met such a young expert who could even threaten his existence. What he did not know was that Tang Zheng had only used the power of Mount Buzhou. Once he left Mount Buzhou, his power would disappear, and he would revert to his original self. Back then, Tang Zheng was still weak and did not have the power to fight the Dragon Slayer. But now, he had reached the Mahayana realm. Although the Dragon Slayer was strong, he would not admit defeat. Seeing that the golden dragon was in danger, he rushed over without a care for his own safety. The Dragon Slayer kept channeling his power, burning with anger. Back then, he had suspected that Tang Zheng was related to the dragon tribe, but had been fooled. Especially when he was scared away by Tang Zheng in the end. This was a great humiliation, and he would often think about it and feel ashamed. The Dragon Slayer was a smart person. He recalled the battle with Tang Zheng many times and gradually figured out what was going on. In that battle, Tang Zheng was at an absolute disadvantage at first and was not a match for the Dragon Slayer at all. Later on, Tang Zheng became braver and braver as he fought. In the end, his strength soared and he scared the Dragon Slayer away. The Dragon Slayer carefully thought about it and deduced that Tang Zheng was not that strong. Something must have happened later on, or something secretly helped him. Then his strength soared. Since Tang Zheng was borrowing external power, the Dragon Slayer's heart was much less heavy. He stared at Tang Zheng with killing intent that soared to the heavens. He gnashed his teeth and said, "You dare to lie to me? Today is the day you die." Whoosh! The dragon whip appeared out of thin air and flashed with golden light. It whipped towards Tang Zheng with a piercing sound. Tang Zheng frowned. He had seen the power of the dragon whip and did not dare to be careless. He activated the somersault cloud and tried to fly to the side. However, the black hole was connected to the Dragon Slayer's palm. A strange force pulled the black hole, and for a moment, Tang Zheng did not have time to dodge to the side. Whoosh!
The dragon whip was right in front of his eyes. A strong gust of wind blew in all directions, causing pain to his cheeks. It was as if the tip of a blade was scraping across his face. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and wanted to stop the sky-swallowing technique. This way, it would not be so easy to use the sky-swallowing technique to firmly attract the dragon slayers again. But at this critical juncture of life and death, if you want to gain something you have to lose something. Therefore he did not hesitate at all. However, a voice sounded in Tang Zheng's ears. "Master, I'll deal with him." Xiaobai let out a low roar and soared into the air. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he had already vanished from his original location and appeared in front of the dragon slayer. His hands formed into claws, and his fingernails were so sharp that they were even scarier than steel knives. Puff! The air was torn apart by him as he grabbed at the dragon slayer. Seeing this, the dragon slayer had no choice but to change the attack trajectory of the dragon whip. He had never seen Xiaobai like this before, so naturally, he did not recognize Xiaobai. However, he was an expert after all. He could tell at a glance that Xiaobai was an expert and could not be underestimated. Therefore, with a shake of the dragon whip, it changed its path and faced Xiaobai head-on. Xiaobai's eyes lit up and it was as if his eyeballs were burning with raging flames. With an angry roar, he grabbed at the dragon slayer with his large hand. Pang! The dragon whip fiercely struck Xiaobai's palm, but it was firmly grabbed by Xiaobai and could not move at all. Although the dragon slayer was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw this scene. He never thought that Xiaobai's strength would be so high that he could even block his dragon whip. "Who are you?" the dragon slayer coldly asked. Ever since he came to this world, the people he met were all weaker than him. Therefore, his pride and arrogance rose and he did not put the people of this world in his eyes at all. Xiaobai jokingly said, "If you dare to harm my master, you must first pass through me. As for who I am standing in front of you. Can't you see for yourself?" These words left the dragon slayer speechless. What made him even more shocked was that Xiaobai had called Tang Zheng master. He was very clear on what the word master meant. Such a powerful person actually called Tang Zheng master. He could not help but look deeply at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted to see through his mysteries. Xiaobai dispelled the dragon whip's attack and Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He finally did not have to give up the sky-swallowing technique and he did his best to activate it. In that instant, black light erupted and the originally wavering light immediately burned fiercely, completely enveloping the dragon slayer's palm. It was as if he would be completely sucked into the black hole in the next second. The dragon slayer's expression suddenly changed and he loudly shouted, "Not good!" He only defended against Xiaobai, but did not defend against the next attack of the sky-swallowing technique. This caused him to fall into an extremely difficult situation. He felt a powerful force devouring his arm. His arm seemed to be dissolving, and it seemed as if it would not be long before it completely turned into nothingness. This was something that had never happened before, so how could he not be shocked? He knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, that black hole would definitely cause fatal damage to him. As a result, he loudly roared and his feet tapped the air, flying backwards. His palm released a brilliant light as he broke free of the black hole's shackles. But at the same time, Xiaobai's power was displayed. The flames in his palm rose into the air and followed the dragon whip, spreading towards the dragon slayer at lightning speed. The dragon slayer was greatly shocked and hurriedly activated the dragon whip. The dragon whip fiercely trembled like a rolling dragon. Xiaobai was forced into helplessness and was also pulled along, spinning like a top. "Be careful, Xiaobai!" Tang Zheng shouted in shock. The dragon whip was spinning too quickly, and its face was burning with raging flames. Therefore, this scene was like a fire dragon in a whirlwind. It was extremely terrifying. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, Xiaobai also knew that it was in a difficult situation. Although it had grabbed the dragon whip, it could not control it. This level of magic treasure was extremely powerful, and it was not something that an outsider could control at will. As a result, Xiaobai had no choice but to let go. The dragon whip broke free and immediately flew backwards like a fish in water. It retreated far away together with the dragon slayer. The golden dragon watched from the side with fear. It never dreamed that the dragon slayer, who was almost invincible in its eyes, would actually take the initiative to retreat under the joint forces of Tang Zheng and Xiaobai. This was simply a fantasy. Tang Zheng heaved a huge sigh of relief. Xiao Bai's strength was beyond his expectations. If the two of them worked together, their chances of winning would greatly increase. At least that was the case for the current situation. Seeing the Dragon Slayer pull apart the distance between the two of them, Tang Zhang did not blindly chase after him. Instead, he stared at the Dragon Slayer with a face as heavy as water and said, "Dragon Slayer, didn't you run away this time? You still dare to appear now. Are you really not afraid of death?" The Dragon Slayer looked at Tang Zhang, then at the Golden Dragon, and said bitterly, "You brat, you lied to me time and time again. You swore that you had nothing to do with the Dragon Clan. Now it seems that it was all a lie. Your relationship is actually so deep. I spent so much effort to find the whereabouts of the Dragon Clan. It turns out that they were by my side." Tang Zhang denied his relationship with the Dragon Clan this time because he was forced to do so. Seeing that the Dragon Slayer had seen through him, although he was mentally prepared, his heart still tightened. The Dragon Clan elder of the Langya Pavilion had repeatedly warned that he must not let the Dragon Clan see through his identity. Otherwise, he would be in danger. That Dragon Clan elder had once said that it was precisely because Tang Zheng's dragon soul had the ability to conceal itself that it could not be easily detected by the Dragon Clan. That was why he could catch the Dragon Slayer off guard. Now that his identity had been seen through, it was only a matter of time before the news reached the ears of all the Dragon Slayers. The advantage that Tang Zhang had gained would be completely gone. Tang Zhang did not even need to think to know how serious the consequences of this would be. He stared at the Dragon Slayer with a burning gaze and made a decision in his heart. He absolutely could not let the Dragon Slayer leave. Otherwise, his greatest secret and reliance would be completely gone. This would attract even more Dragon Slayers to come to this world. After all, a hidden Dragon Clan member was too attractive to the Dragon Slayers. They would definitely be impatient to use Tang Zhang as an experimental specimen to conduct detailed research on in order to figure out his secrets and prevent the other Dragon Clan members from copying him and hiding their tracks. Seeing Tang Zhang's reaction, the Dragon Slayer's complacency rose spontaneously and became more and more intense. He said, "We searched high and low for you, only to find you by chance. We Dragon Slayers will be very interested in you. We will definitely find out how you avoided our Dragon Clan's detection." Tang Zhang said that it was indeed so. He had not guessed wrongly at all. Immediately, the Dragon Slayer became even more determined. He did not say a word and immediately gave a look to Xiao Bai and the Golden Dragon. Both sides immediately understood and blocked the Dragon Slayer's path. The three sides formed a triangle and firmly controlled the Dragon Slayer, constantly guarding against him from escaping. Seeing this scene, the Dragon Slayer felt more anger than danger. These people were actually preventing him from escaping. Was there a mistake? He was a famous Dragon Slayer. How could he escape without fighting? As for this time, it was completely an accident. The Dragon Slayer defended himself in his heart. If Tang Zhang heard his thoughts, he would definitely roll his eyes. Wouldn't the Dragon Slayer run away? How naive. If you want to deal with me, you have to weigh your own strength first. Now, not only will I pull out your tendons and devour your souls, I will also make you all die without a burial ground. The Dragon Slayer pointed at Tang Zhang and the others and said resolutely. Tang Zhang did not refute. He coldly snorted and roared, "Xiao Bai, Golden Dragon, let's work together. We must kill him here." Kill. The Golden Dragon was stunned. It seemed that he did not expect the Dragon Slayer to be killed. Tang Zhang lightly glanced at him and understood his thoughts. He decisively said, "Of course we'll kill him. What he did to the Dragon Clan, we will return tens of thousands of times. We will let you also experience the taste of it." After saying this, he took the lead and rushed out. The dragon might around his body surged. Dragon chi rose and overflowed with colors. He was like a golden man. This was because he had completely given up on restraining the dragon chi and dragon might. He simply used the Dragon Clan's abilities openly in order to kill the Dragon Slayer in front of him. Chapter 14:21. When the Dragon Slayer saw the golden light blossoming from Tang Zhang's body, he was both shocked and shocked. He originally thought that Tang Zhang had a close relationship with the dragon race. But now, it seemed that he had greatly underestimated Tang Zhang. Not only did this person have a close relationship with the dragon race, but more importantly, he was a member of the dragon race. He suddenly remembered that he had once sensed a vague dragon, but in the next moment, this feeling disappeared without a trace. He had thought that it was an illusion. Now, it seemed that it was not an illusion at all. This dragon race had a mysterious way of hiding their dragon soul. The truth was right in front of him and spoke louder than words. The dragon slayer stared at Tang Zheng with shining eyes and said, "Kill me? What a fantasy! If I capture you alive, you will definitely be the most valuable dragon I have ever captured in my life." Ha ha ha. The dragon slayer's eyes really shone and the corners of his mouth cracked into a sinister smile. Hearing the dragon slayer's bold words, Xiao Bai was the first to step out and refuted with righteous indignation. "If you want to harm my master, you will have to step over my dead body first." The dragon slayer's pupils shrank. He narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Xiao Bai. Clearly, he did not believe him. The golden dragon understood Xiao Bai better than the dragon slayer. When it saw him transform into a human, it was extremely shocked. When it heard Xiao Bai's loyal oath, it could not help but look at Tang Zheng. Xiao Bai had transformed into a human, so his strength must have increased by another level. It would be very beneficial for this battle. The golden dragon's originally despairing heart was once again filled with a trace of hope. While speaking, Tang Zheng rushed in front of the dragon slayer. Xiao Bai also rushed in front of the dragon slayer with surging killing intent. The dragon slayer's large hand trembled and waved the dragon whip. In an instant, the dragon whip flickered with golden light and lashed out at Tang Zheng's golden body. Force met force. Bang! Tang Zheng's arm was numb. He had resisted the dragon whip once, but his expression did not change. He quickly rushed forward and arrived in front of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer cried out in surprise. His dragon whip curled up, and like a nimble and furious dragon, he quickly went up against Tang Zheng. Another muffled sound rang out. Tang Zheng and the dragon slayer both retreated backwards at the same time. Tang Zheng was secretly shocked. The dragon slayer was indeed powerful. However, after continuously attacking, he finally gained something. He had already roughly determined the cultivation level of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer's cultivation was higher than his, but it was not ridiculously high. He was probably around the 6th stage of the Mahayana realm. Tang Zheng could hold on for a while, but the result was already decided. He was bound to lose. Of course, this was when he was alone. If he had the help of others and worked together, the consequences would be unknown. That being said, the pressure that Tang Zheng was under was unimaginable. Only the person involved could understand it. However, he still did not retreat. He stared at the dragon slayer as if he was facing death. The dragon slayer also saw Tang Zheng's cultivation level and said disdainfully, "A mere 2nd stage of the Mahayana realm wants to compete with me? You're overestimating yourself." After saying that, his gaze involuntarily swept to the golden dragon. He curled his lips in disdain. "So what if you're from the dragon clan? You're only at the 1st stage of the Mahayana realm. Compared to that kid, you're even worse." Ha! The contempt was obvious in his words. The golden dragon was furious, but there was nothing it could do. This was because the dragon slayer was telling the truth. Its cultivation level was indeed not as good as Tang Zheng's. There was no falsehood in one's cultivation. High was high, low was low. The dragon slayer's gaze shifted slightly and fell on Xiao Bai. However, he did not dare to underestimate him. His expression even became dignified. He knew very well that this battle was going to be fierce. If he was not careful, he would be doomed. Hearing the dragon slayer's unscrupulous comments, Tang Zheng stared straight at the other party and interrupted. "Dragon slayer, although your cultivation level is high, you are weak. If we work together, although our cultivation level is not as good as yours, we will still kill you." Kill. After a pause, there was a deafening roar that made one's blood boil. He was ready to take the lead again, but there was someone faster. That was Xiao Bai. Last time, Tang Zheng took the lead to launch an attack and was in danger. This time, he would not let the same situation happen again. As a result, Tang Zheng only saw a fiery red figure like a meteorite falling from the sky, blowing a strong wind and fiercely rushing toward the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer shook the dragon whip again. In an instant, the whip's shadow surged and stirred the sky. The dragon clan was good at moving clouds and making rain. The dragon slayer had absorbed countless dragon souls and made a dragon whip with dragon tendons. Naturally, The sky was changed by the wind and clouds and changed color. A storm was coming. Xiao Bai resolutely rushed forward. He was as fast as lightning. With a flash, he encountered the dragon whip. This time, Xiao Bai did not reach out to grab the dragon whip. Instead, with a shake of his body, he actually returned to his original form. His body rapidly shrank and passed through the seemingly airtight attack of the dragon whip. All of this happened in a flash. The change was really too fast. Therefore, before the dragon slayer could react, Xiao Bai was already in front of him. Although the dragon whip was powerful, it had not reached the level of being airtight. Therefore, Xiao Bai cleverly took advantage of this opportunity. If the dragon slayer had seen through Xiao Bai's true form earlier, perhaps he would not have done this and let Xiao Bai take advantage of this opportunity for nothing. There was no use in regretting it. After all, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The dragon slayer hurriedly turned his hand to defend. The dragon whip pointed backward, like a snake flicking its tongue. With a whoosh, it reached Xiao Bai's back. Whoosh! A ball of fiery red gradually rose from Xiao Bai's body. The fiery red hair was really like balls of flames. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The flames split into 9 and surrounded the dragon slayer, blocking his path of retreat. The dragon whip and the flames intertwined and directly exploded. Sparks flew in all directions, covering the sky and land. It was incomparably brilliant. This attack actually showed signs of a stalemate, causing everyone's eyes to light up. In particular, the dragon slayer's eyes were cold. The meaning was self-evident. The dragon slayer was shocked. He had never thought that Xiao Bai's strength was actually so ridiculously high. Even he had no way of defeating the other party. Immediately, he somewhat believed Tang Zheng's words. With the 3 of them working together, perhaps he really could be killed by the other party. No, how can I admit defeat so casually? Dream on! The dragon slayer shouted in his heart. His expression was solemn as he attacked back. The dragon whip shook violently with a whoosh. It was as straight as a long spear without the slightest bend. It came and went straight, and one could imagine its power. The dragon whip was like a long spear, ruthlessly thrusting toward Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's big hand reached out in the void and grabbed the long spear. The long spear's attack was like a rainbow. Xiao Bai was involuntarily pushed back by this huge force, and was forced to retreat. On the other hand, the dragon slayer's situation was not much different. The hand that was holding the dragon whip actually trembled a few times. The dragon whip was firmly grasped by Xiao Bai's big hand. The dragon whip rolled along with the momentum, and like a spear flower, it shook out a large area of spear flowers. The spear flowers did not diminish. Instead, they flew fiercely toward Xiao Bai, full of killing intent. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1422. Xiao Bai still did not loosen his grip. Instead, he continued to incite the flames. With a boom, the flames soared into the sky and flew along the dragon whip to the dragon slayer's arm. At the same time, the spear flower also caused a flower of blood to bloom on Xiao Bai's body. Xiao Bai groaned, but did not loosen his grip. It was risking both of them being injured to give the dragon slayer a fierce blow. Chapter 1423. Pop! A weed broke out from the ground, exuding green vitality. It was like a stone that landed on the mirror-like surface of a lake. In an instant, waves rippled out. Chapter 1424. What was this wondrous gain? It was actually enough to make Tang Zheng go wild with joy. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily curled up. He muttered to himself, "Dragon Slayer, your divine dragon swings its tail is only a... I'll let you experience the feeling of the divine dragon swings its tail too." As his voice fell, a golden light extended from Tang Zheng's spine. With a whoosh, the golden light overflowed and soared into the sky. This! The dragon slayer was dumbfounded and subconsciously cried out in surprise, staring straight at the golden light swaying in mid-air. This was not a simple golden light, but a dragon tail. Tang Zheng could also transform into a dragon tail, because he had cultivated the dragon god mantra and possessed the dragon soul. The dragon tail that he transformed into was a real dragon tail, and not the half-real, half-fake kind of dragon slayer. The dragon slayer stared at the dragon tail with burning eyes, and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He had expended a lot of energy to conjure the dragon tail, but this brat could actually do it as well, and everything that he had displayed was above him. This was really a case of comparing oneself to others. He really wanted to roar to the sky. Tang Zheng's eyes also emitted a golden light, staring at the dragon slayer like a tiger watching its prey. He roared, "Eat my attack!" The power of the divine dragon swings its tail was not inferior to that of the golden dragon at all. In fact, it was even more powerful than the golden dragon. The dragon slayer sucked in a breath of cold air. He had no choice but to fight with all his might. With a whoosh, the golden light flew toward the dragon slayer. Everywhere it passed, the air was dyed golden. It was as if there was only this golden color left between heaven and earth. In the past, Tang Zheng definitely could not use this move, but looking at the dragon slayer, he suddenly realized that he could use this kind of divine ability too. It was just that he was blinded and did not think of it at all. He was inspired and naturally used this move of the divine dragon swings its tail, which was extremely powerful. The dragon slayer actually had the intention to retreat, but there was nowhere to retreat. He could only fight back. Without the dragon whip, he had no choice but to use the divine dragon swings its tail. Bang! Just like before, the two golden dragon tails collided. Golden light splattered everywhere, and the wind howled. Kacha! With a shattering sound, golden light burst forth. The dragon slayer's dragon tail had completely disappeared, leaving only Tang Zheng's dragon tail swinging in the air majestically. Without a doubt, the two dragon tails collided. Tang Zheng was victorious and the dragon slayer was defeated. The dragon slayer retreated awkwardly. If he was at his peak, he definitely wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Unfortunately, not only did he have to resist the flames, but he also had to worry about the golden dragon and Xiao Bai's surprise attack, so he couldn't focus on dealing with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng also knew this, so he did not think that he had completely won. Dragon slayers definitely had more means to protect themselves. Thus, Tang Zheng stepped forward bravely and attacked the dragon slayer like a storm. The dragon slayer had no way out. He roared, "Brat, don't go too far." Tang Zheng was not moved at all. He said jokingly, "When you were dealing with the dragon race, why didn't you think about going too far? You dragon slayers actually wanted to exterminate the entire dragon race for your own selfish interests. This kind of ambition is intolerable, and you still have the nerve to say that I'm going too far." The dragon slayer's face turned red, and he was speechless. Tang Zheng followed up with another attack. "The day you exterminated the dragon race, you should have known that you would also have such a day." The dragon slayer snorted coldly and said, "I, the dragon slayer, am incomparably powerful. Do you think you can fight against me with your own strength? Humph, you overestimate yourself. I'm not the only dragon slayer. There are tens of thousands of them. You offended me and became my enemy, which means you became the enemy of all the dragon slayers." The dragon slayer's threat was very serious, causing Tang Zheng to subconsciously frown. An idea came to his mind. The dragon slayer was indeed not alone. Although he had only seen this one so far, he had to be on guard against the arrival of other dragon slayers. It was precisely because of this that he could not let this dragon slayer have the chance to go back and report. Otherwise, it would definitely attract even more dragon slayers. At that time, Tang Zheng could only passively take a beating. This world would really reach the end of the world. Don't flatter yourself. Your flattery might be useful against 3-year-old children, but against us, you're not just a little bit lacking. Tang Zheng said sarcastically. The dragon slayer's face alternated between red and white. He was incomparably anxious. "I admit that the other dragon slayers are very powerful. As for how high your position is among the dragon slayers, I'm not interested. But there's one thing I can tell you clearly. Today, you definitely want to leave this place." Tang Zheng said solemnly. "You really want to kill me? Now that things have come to this, could it be that you think you still have a chance to survive?" Tang Zheng asked jokingly. The dragon slayer was speechless. From Tang Zheng's tone and gaze, he had already determined that Tang Zheng's killing intent was resolute. "Killing me won't be that easy," the dragon slayer shouted. He used the same trick again, wanting to escape without a trace.
However, whoosh! A figure blocked the dragon slayer's path. However, it was not Tang Zheng, but Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai glared at him like a tiger watching its prey. He stretched out his hand and clawed again. His sharp claws pierced towards the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer had been resisting the power of the flames with difficulty. However, Xiao Bai's flames were too powerful. He had no way to completely extinguish them. Just now, he had already extinguished a bit of the flames, but it had consumed most of his power. Therefore, he could only watch helplessly as the claws pierced towards him. He could only retreat. He did not even have the courage to fight. With a pincer attack from the front and back, Tang Zheng did not let him go. With a thought, the divine dragon swung its tail. Another golden dragon tail swept down and attacked the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer let out a sharp cry and shouted, "No!" Boom! The dragon tail swept the dragon slayer's body. He was like a kite with a broken string as he flew backwards into the distance. However, Tang Zheng and the other two were like shadows. They did not give the dragon slayer any chance to leave their sight. Before the dragon slayer had even landed on the ground, the three of them had already arrived in front of him. They were ready to launch another fatal attack. The dragon slayer was almost in despair. However, he did not completely give up. From the corner of his eyes, he looked into the distance. A towering mountain peak towered into the clouds. It was like a giant. The dragon slayer recognized this mountain peak. He was pleasantly surprised. His feet were greased as he shuttled through the crowd. Last time, he suffered a great loss on Mount Buzhou. He did not know that it was the divine power of Mount Buzhou. Otherwise, he would not have thought of coming here even if he was beaten to death. In addition, the dragon slayer had his own plans. He had used up too much of his power. He was no longer able to fight against the three of them. He did not want to die. Therefore, he had been searching for a way to escape. Finally, when he saw Mount Buzhou, he immediately fell into deep thought. Then he was wild with joy. The dragon slayer had seen the power of this world's powerhouses. He did not dare to underestimate them anymore. He wanted to leave this world. Space jumping was the most effective method. And to do this, he had to use Mount Buzhou. Because the dragon slayer had used up too much of his power in consecutive battles. He could not even open the space door. He only had one chapter today. He was not in good spirits. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1425. At that time, no matter how powerful the enemy was, they would not be able to do anything to him. In the future, he would lead the army of dragon slayers to this world and kill all the enemies. No. Not only would he kill the enemies, but he would also destroy this world, just like how he destroyed the home of the dragon clan. Chapter 1426. Tang Zheng's eyes were overflowing with radiance as he exclaimed inwardly. The dragon slayer's power was too powerful. It was like a huge treasure. He continuously absorbed energy, and his meridians gradually filled up like a person who had eaten his fill. Chapter 1427. Suddenly, Yuanying's fingers moved. It was very weak, but it did not escape Tang Zheng's attention. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked. He stared straight at Yuanying to confirm that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. Yuanying's fingers were indeed moving. Yuanying seemed to have sensed him. She raised her head and stared at him with her bright eyes. Chapter 1428. Tang Zheng's attention could not help but be deeply attracted. He was not someone who had not seen the world. Not only had he seen Xiao Bai open an interspatial door, but he had also seen the dragon slayer open one earlier. Nonetheless, it was completely different this time because the young fellow had opened the interspatial door himself. Previously, he had asked someone else to do it, but this time, he had done it himself. Chapter 1429. He first straightened out his cultivation. He was already a top-notch master at the 4th stage of the Mahayana realm. He had to carefully plan every step to avoid making mistakes. First of all,
He already knew the secret of transforming into a martial artist. Naturally, he would not miss such a great opportunity. Chapter 14:30. However, this time it was completely different. The three of them actually did not feel much of anything. This was all thanks to the heavenly chess. If it were not for the fact that the heavenly chess possessed such heaven-defying power, the project of transforming their meridians would have directly led to their deaths, and everything would have been for naught. Tang Zhang already understood this, so he continued to incessantly channel the power of the stars, rapidly transforming the meridians of the three people. Chapter 14:31. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes at him and said, "You brat, how would you understand my feelings?" Tang Zhang rolled his eyes speechlessly and teased, "Why are you so afraid of being photographed on the beach?" Tian Chanzi snorted and said, "Why would I be afraid of being photographed on the beach? Ridiculous, I, Tian Chanzi, have been leading the world for thousands of years. How could I be scared by a group of juniors?" You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.